All right, welcome back. In this video, we're going to talk about the rules for a scrimmage game of Slaughterball. A scrimmage game is the introductory level of rules to make it simple and easier for you to pick up the basics and get into the game quickly as possible. There are other types of rules, the exhibition and league rules, but we'll get into those in other videos. Now, I just want to remind you that everything you see in these videos are prototype components. These, for instance, the miniatures were printed at Shapeways in a low detail material, and the board was printed at FedEx, and etc. All right, so we've got the board set up here for a scrimmage game between 4 coaches, and each coach gets 6 athletes oriented in the same positions to make it easy for your first few games. And everybody's got a butcher and 2 slashers and 2 cleavers and a razor. In addition to that, everybody got 3 strategy cards here to start off with. The number of coaches determines how many strategy cards each coach gets. Basically, it's 12 divided by the number of coaches that are in the game. Each coach also got 3 onslaught tokens, and that's used during the onslaught phase of your turn. Then there's the dice out there, there's the first coach markers and score markers, you got the round tracker here. You see you've got the closed door tokens are placed on all the goals to show that no one can score any points in the goals until they are opened. And the way you open it is an athlete has to move onto the meat grinder with the ball in his hands. Then we've got the reference sheet. You'll get 4 of those. Every coach will have one of those double-sided. On one side, it has the traits for your scrimmage athletes, and on the other side, it has instructions on the sequence of play and the instructions for the actions that you can take with your athletes. Now that we've got everything set up, first thing that we'd have to do is launch the ball onto the pit. So the way you do that is somebody rolls a D8. You roll it out there, and I got a 7. That means the ball is going to launch from the launcher marked 7, which is way over there. And then to scatter from there, the coach in last place is going to roll the die, and then he gets to put the ball anywhere within that number of spaces from the launcher. So since this is the beginning of the game and nobody's scored yet, there's nobody in last place, the determining factor for a last place coach is whoever moves last in the turn. So since green moves first and we're going around clockwise, that means yellow would move last, and that makes them the last place coach. And they get to roll the 8-sided scatter die again. And we got a 2, and that means the yellow coach can take the ball and put it anywhere within 2 spaces of that launcher. So they're going to move it 1, 2. And then that was the launch off. So we can move the round tracker up from the launch off to round 1. And the first coach can now take his turn. Now there are 6 rounds during a Slaughterball game. And in each round, each coach gets to take 1 turn. And green here is going first. And on his turn, he gets to go through 3 phases. The first phase is the draw phase, then the onslaught phase, and then the cleanup phase. During the draw phase, you manage your strategy cards. During the onslaught phase, you take actions with some of your athletes. And during the cleanup phase, you remove your tokens from the board. All right, let's talk about the draw phase. During a coach's draw phase, he would get to discard as many of his strategy cards as he wants, and then draw back up to his hand size. Except on the first turn. On your first turn, you don't get a discard because you just drew them, and you have to keep what you drew. So during the draw phase on the first round, there's not much to do. Now we get to the onslaught phase. The onslaught phase is the meatiest part of your turn, and it's where most stuff's going to happen. It's where you're going to move your athletes around the board, pick up the ball, chop opponents, shoot goals, everything like that. And so on your onslaught phase, you are going to take your onslaught tokens, you got 3 of them, and one at a time, you're going to assign them to one of your athletes, and then that athlete can take 2 actions, up to 2 actions, consecutively. So he could move and chop, he could move, and if he had the ball, he could move and throw the ball, but you cannot take the same action twice in the same onslaught. So he couldn't move and move or chop and chop. So now is a good time to get into all the different actions that your athletes can take. All right, let's start with the move action. It's pretty self-explanatory. It's how you get one of your athletes to some other place on the board. Now, each athlete has a speed attribute. In a scrimmage game, the butcher has a speed of 4, the slashers have a speed of 5, the cleavers have a speed of 6, and the razors have a speed of 7. And that's the maximum number of spaces you can move using a move action. There are some cards in the deck that help you move a little bit further, such as burst of speed. That will help you move 3 extra spaces, but you have to play that card, and it's not always going to be in your hand. But let's say that the green team here, it's their turn, and the coach wants the butcher to move, so he's going to give him an onslaught token and say, I'm taking a move action. And the butcher has a movement of 4, so he goes 1, 2, 3, 4, because he wants to go over there and take care of that yellow cleaver. And that's it. That's the basic move action. Now let's get into some specifics around it. When you take a move action, your athletes can move through the spaces with your teammates, no problem, but you cannot move through spaces with opposing teammates. You also cannot end your move in the same space as another athlete. So for example, let's say we want to move the razor, we put an onslaught token on him, and then say he wants to take a move action. He wants to get over here somewhere. He can move 7, so he can go 1, 2, 3, moving through a space with his teammate, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's no problem. He can do that just fine. However, he could not go like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. He can't move through a space with an opponent. So that is illegal. Now, one of the main things you can do when you are moving is pick up the ball. And that is a free part of your move action. And you can do it as many times as you want to during your move. So for instance, if the first time you try to pick up the ball, you fail. And then if you can get to the ball again, you would be able to try to pick up again. Picking up the ball is a free part of your move action. So let's say that this green razor here, we're going to put onslaught token on him. He's going to take a move action. Go over to that ball and try to pick it up. So he goes 1, 2, 3, 4. He is now in the same space as the ball. When you move into the same space as the ball, you can try to pick it up. And the way you do that is you roll a number of dice equal to your dexterity value. And the razors have a dexterity value in scrimmage games of 6. So he gets to roll 6 dice. And he needs 1 knife, 1 or more knives, and he picks up the ball. So there he rolled enough knives, so he picks up the ball. Now he moved 4 spaces. His movement is 7. He still has 3 more spaces to move. So he could go 1, 2, 3, move into the meat grinder, and if I back out here some, you'll see that the goals are still closed. So, but he moved into the meat grinder, so with the ball. So he gets to open all the goals. And the first team to move a player with the ball into the meat grinder also scores 2 points. So green got 2 points. Now, another aspect of a move action is in relation to moving around opposing athletes. That can get dangerous. Sometimes you might be able to move around them pretty safely. So for instance, if I would take an onslaught token on the green cleaver and he wants to move, he could go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And he moved around the red cleaver and nothing happened. Well, sometimes it's safe to do that because your opponent doesn't have the right cards. But there's always a risk when you move around opposing athletes because they might have in their hand the interrupt card. So let's show you what happens when an interrupt card is played. So the green cleaver here is going to do the same thing. He's going to try and move around the red butcher. And so he takes a move action. He goes 1, 2, and then the red butcher says, wait, go back to that first space that you tried to move out of. You're adjacent to me, and you tried to move out of that space. But I have an interrupt card, and that lets me stop you when you move out of an adjacent space. So we stop his movement temporarily, and then the red butcher is going to try to carve the green cleaver. When you try to attack someone who's moving by you, moving away from you, that is called a carve. And how that works is you do an opposed trait test. The butcher rolls his brawling, and the cleaver rolls his evasion. And the butcher has a brawling of 7, and the cleaver has an evasion of 4. And so here's the butcher's roll, and then he counts up the knives. You got 6 knives. You ignore the other symbols in the scrimmage game. And then the cleaver tries to evade, and he got 3 knives. So 6 knives is more than 3. 3 knives cancel 3 of those knives, but that leaves 3 leftover knives. So the butcher got more knives than the cleaver, which knocks down the cleaver. That ends the cleaver's move. He's stuck there. And he can't do anything else this round because he's been knocked over during the move action. And if someone on some team at that point had the lost momentum card, they could play that on the green team, and it would end their entire onslaught phase. That's just one of the helpful cards there when someone gets knocked over. And that is how you can carve opponents as they try to move out of a space adjacent to you. A shoot action is when you have one of your athletes try to make a goal by throwing the Slaughterball into one of the goals, and there are multiple goals on each pit. So in this case, the yellow cleaver gets an onslaught token, is going to take a shoot action to try and throw into that goal, which is 3 spaces away. So in order to make that goal, she needs to roll her accuracy dice. She has 4 accuracy, so she gets to roll 4 dice. And she rolls them, and she wants to get 3 knives. She got 3 knives because she needs to get 1, 2, 3 equal to the distance to the goal in order to make the goal. So, bam, she just made the goal. She scores points equal to the distance, so she scored 3 points. And the ball immediately shoots out of a launcher on the other side of the pit. And I will zoom out here so you can see that. So she made the goal. So we get the relaunch template here, which you roll 1 die, and I got a star. So the goal was made here, and I rolled a star, which means it goes across the field to the right. So the ball shoots out of this launcher over there. And then whoever is the last place coach gets to roll a die and move it that many spaces, up to that many spaces wherever they want, into an unoccupied space. Now there is a bit of a wrinkle here. If you have someone adjacent to you, let's say that she's standing there, but she's got 2 opponents next to her. And let me zoom back in on that. So the yellow cleaver wants to shoot into that goal, but she's got 2 opponents adjacent to her. And whenever you're adjacent to an opponent, you can interfere with their dice rolls. And that means you get to subtract 1 die from whatever they're doing. So in this instance, normally, as you just saw earlier, the yellow cleaver gets to roll 4 dice for accuracy. But this blue guy here doesn't want her to score, so he's going to interfere with her because he's adjacent, and that subtracts 1 die from her. And the red guy is going to do the same thing, so that subtracts another die. So she only gets to roll 2 dice, and she needs 3, right? So she only got 1 knife, so that's a miss. So when you miss, the ball hits the rim, bounces off the wall, and then scatters from here. So that means whoever is the lowest, the last place coach, gets to roll the scatter die and move the ball up to that many spaces. So that's a 5. Let's say green would have the lowest score. And so he can move up to 5 spaces. 1, 2, 3, 4. He's just going to move it right there. And you have to scatter it into an unoccupied space. You can't scatter the ball into a space that has an athlete in it. So there you've seen a shooting action where the goal was made and where the goal wasn't made. In either case, yellow can still go if they still have onslaught tokens left. So scoring does not end your turn, and missing a shot does not end your turn. So that gives you an opportunity to score multiple times on your turn. With a pass action, you're trying to get the ball from one of your athletes to another one of your athletes. And it's pretty simple, similar to shooting, but you actually get to roll a few more dice. So let's take a look at how it works. So you would take an onslaught token, put it on your guy. We got this blue cleaver here who gets an onslaught token, and he is going to take a pass action and try and throw it to his teammate, the slasher over here. So to throw it, he gets to roll his accuracy, and he has 4 in accuracy. So he gets to roll 4 dice. And the slasher gets to try to catch it, and he gets to roll his dexterity to try and catch it, and it gives him 3 dice. However, as you can see, there's some opponents adjacent to each one of those. So this red butcher here is going to interfere with the cleaver's throwing, passing the ball, and that subtracts 1 die from his total. This yellow cleaver is going to interfere with the blue slasher on his catching, and that subtracts 1 die from his roll. So they get a total of 5 dice to try and complete a pass here. Now to complete a pass, they have to roll a number of knives equal to the spaces in between them. So there are 1, 2, 3, 4 spaces between those two, and it's the shortest path. So they get to roll 5 dice. All right, so they rolled pretty poorly there. You only got 1 knife. You ignore all the other symbols in scrimmage game. So that is an incomplete pass, and what that means is the ball is going to scatter from the receiver's space. And that means whoever is the last place coach gets to roll the scatter die. And you rolled a 7. Let's say red is the last place. And so he gets to move the ball anywhere he wants within 7 spaces. So he's going to move it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right next to his own red guy over there. And that was an incomplete pass. Now let's say that instead these guys weren't here, they had nobody adjacent to them, and so they got to roll their full values for their accuracy and their dexterity. So you should roll 7 dice, and this time they got 6 knives. 6 is more than 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So that means this blue slasher successfully caught the ball. And that's free. Catching is free. You don't need an onslaught token. He used an onslaught token to pass, but he does not need to use an onslaught token to catch because that's free. A chop action is the primary way that your athletes will attack opponents. When you're adjacent to an opponent, you can take a chop action and engage in an opposed brawling trait test. That basically simulates you punching, kicking, tackling, shouldering, kneeing, biting, slashing, wrestling, or doing anything you can to knock over the opponent. If you're good enough, you can also injure them and send them to the slaughter box. However, whenever you chop someone, they aren't just going to sit there and take it. They're also going to fight back. So you also have a chance of being knocked over or sent to the injury box. So let's see how this works. Let's say it's the green coach's turn and he takes an onslaught token and puts it on his butcher. And that butcher takes a move action. He goes 1, 2, 3, 4. He moves adjacent to the blue slasher who has the ball there. Then the green butcher takes another action, his second action, and he's going to chop the blue guy. So the green butcher gets to roll his brawling dice. He has 7 brawling, so he gets 7 dice. And to defend, the blue athlete gets to roll 4 dice. But he has the ball, and that's like a big hunk of steel. So he can use that as a weapon, and he gets another die to use for that. Also, there is the red butcher right there. He is adjacent to both green and blue. So he can make a decision on whether or not he wants to interfere with green, whether or not he wants to interfere with blue, or not do anything. Well, maybe blue is in the lead right now, and red wants to get the ball away from that team. So he's going to interfere with blue and remove one of those die. So now, going to roll the dice. The green butcher gets to roll his dice. And he got 2 knives. Now, the blue slasher rolls his dice. He gets no knives. So, the green player got more knives. That knocks over the blue player. The blue player had the ball, so that means that scatters the ball. Whoever has the last place coach gets to roll the scatter die, rolled an 8, and he can move it up to 8 spaces away. And let's say the yellow team was the last place coach, so they move it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, over to there. Now, in another example, let's say that nobody has the ball here, but it's green's turn, and they want to attack the blue guy again. The green coach is going to use a little different strategy. He's going to put a onslaught token on his cleaver over here and move the cleaver. 1, 2, 3, 4. He's going to move him adjacent to the blue guy, but he's not going to attack because the blue guy is actually stronger than the green guy. And the green guy doesn't want a chance of being knocked over. So he's just going to stay there. But there's a strategy behind this that we'll show you in a minute. The green coach then puts his second onslaught token on his slasher, moves the slasher up to here, adjacent to the blue guy, and then takes no other action. Finally, as his final onslaught of his turn, the green coach puts his onslaught token on his butcher, moves his butcher, 1, 2, 3, and then takes a chop action against the blue slasher. Now, as you can see there, the green coach set it up so he's got 3-on-1 during this chop attack. So the green butcher gets 7 dice, and the blue slasher gets 4 dice. But this green player is going to interfere with the blue guy, taking away 1 die. And this green player is going to interfere with the blue guy, taking away another die. So the blue guy only gets to roll 2 to the green guy's 7. So let's start with the green butcher gets to roll all his dice. And he got 4 knives. And the blue slasher rolls his and gets 0 knives. Once again, that knocks down the blue slasher. And when you knock down a player, you get 1 point added to your score. Now let's adjust what just happened a little bit and say that the green butcher actually rolled 6 knives and then the blue slasher still rolled 0 knives. So that means that the green butcher rolled 6 extra knives, and that is actually more than the blue slasher's 5 toughness. So when you roll more extra knives than the toughness of the other person, you actually injure them. And in this case, 6 is more than 5. So the blue slasher is sent to the slaughter box. And the green team scores 3 points for injuring a slasher. A spike action is where you throw the ball at an opponent in attempts to knock them down. Usually you can't injure an opponent with a spike because they're pretty easy to dodge the ball and you're wearing some good armor, and it's just a difficult proposition to actually send someone to the injury box with a spike action. However, it is doable if you have the correct cards in your hand. So to start a spike action, first you have to have the ball, and then let's say this guy has the ball and he wants to spike the red cleaver over there. So the blue coach puts an onslaught token, says, I'm going to try to spike the red cleaver over there. And to do a spike, you get to roll your accuracy dice, 7 accuracy dice. That's to hit the other guy. He also gets to add his brawling dice to that to kind of simulate how strong he's throwing the ball. Right? He gets 2 more dice for that. And he's throwing the ball at something quite a bit larger than a goal, so he gets some bonus dice based on the size of the athlete that he's throwing it at. And in this case, he's throwing it at a cleaver, and that gives him 4 extra dice. So he gets to roll 13 dice on that spike attack, and the cleaver gets to roll his evasion to duck out of the way and have it miss him. And so he gets 4 dice. So let's see what we got here. Now it's a scrimmage game, so you ignore everything except the knives. All right. He got 10 knives. That's pretty good. And now the cleaver rolls his evasion dice. He got 1 knife. So the cleaver rolled 1 die, and that cancels one of the razor's dice. And that leaves the razor with that many extra dice. So first of all, he has to get enough dice, as many dice as the number of spaces between the 2. So he gets 1, 2, 3. So that's good. And those dice are gone now. And with his remaining dice, he needs to exceed the toughness of the cleaver. And the cleaver has a toughness of 4. He's got 6 extra dice. So he's exceeded his toughness, But in this case, it doesn't injure him because it's a spike. It just knocks him down. Just like that. And after that happens, the ball scatters from the target's location. So whoever is the last place coach is to roll the die, and then he moves the ball somewhere, wherever they want. The team who successfully threw the spike gets 1 point for knocking down the opposing player, plus another point for each space in between them. So he gets 1, and then 1, 2, 3. So a total of 4 points for spiking that other player. Now, if the blue player had the brutal spike card, he can play that right now. And that essentially turns a spike knockdown into a spike injury. And it would send the red player to the slaughter box injured, and the blue player would get an extra point for actually sending the cleaver to the slaughter box. The cleanup phase is the last phase of your turn, and it's pretty simple. And for instance here, let's say that the red coach just finished his onslaught phase, and now it's his cleanup phase. First of all, you take your onslaught tokens, take them off the field, and then if you have any athletes in the penalty box, you could play a penalty expires card during the cleanup phase, and that would let you move one of your players from the penalty box into your unoccupied reentry space over there. And you can do that during your cleanup phase. And then you would be done with your cleanup phase. All right, let's talk a little bit about penalties. In the strategy card deck, there are several penalty cards. And penalty cards are what you can use to punish people who commit fouls during the game. There are 3 fouls that athletes can commit that you can use a penalty card on. The first one is if anybody attacks a raiser who is not holding the ball. So for instance, if the blue guy used an onslaught token up to here and moved up to there and then did a chop attack against the red raiser, no matter what the result of that chop attack, any coach could play a penalty card saying, hey, you just attacked a raiser without the ball, it's very unsportsmanlike, and you're going to the penalty box. So that's the first foul that you can commit. Second foul is if you attack a prone player. That's a more unsportsmanlike conduct. So let's say the blue guy here, the blue butcher, moved over there and then chops the yellow slasher who's down there. That would give the blue athlete some extra dice. But after the resolution of that chop attack, a coach could play a penalty card on the blue guy and send him to the penalty box. The final foul can happen only before the goals are opened. And in this case, if you move an athlete into the meat grinder and end the movement there, another coach can play a penalty card on you if the goals are not opened. Now that's designed so no team can move 4 athletes into the meat grinder before the goals are open, so that nobody can open the goals. And the final thing we need to talk about for penalties is how do you get somebody out of the penalty box? In a scrimmage game, the only way to do that is with the penalty expires card, as I mentioned earlier. You just play the card during your cleanup phase, and then you can take one of your athletes in the penalty box and put them on your reentry space. And that happens during the cleanup phase. Now in Slaughterball, there are 3 different ways to score. The first way to score is if you have an athlete with the ball, and you're the first athlete to run into the meat grinder with the ball. First thing that does is open all the goals. But the second thing it does is it gives you 2 points, in which you score for being the first person to run in the meat grinder with the ball. The second way to score is to throw the ball from somewhere into the goal. And then you'll score a number of points equal to how far away you were when you threw the ball. So in this case, 1, 2, 3, 4. If she successfully threw the ball in the goal, she'd score 4 points. The final way to score in Slaughterball is to beat up on your opponents. So you get 1 point for knocking down a cleaver, slasher, or butcher. Now, if you injure those players, you get more points. So cleaver, if you send a cleaver to the slaughter box, that's worth 2 points. If you send a slasher to the slaughter box, that's worth 3 points. And if you send a butcher to the slaughter box, that's worth 4 points. Razors are not worth any points for knocking them down or sending them to the slaughter box, because that really doesn't take much effort and it's not worth any points. Those are the 3 ways to score in Slaughterball, and whoever has the most points at the end of the game is the winner.